We've got a different audience today. Okay, up next we have Janette Third. You're from Enliven. You might not be so lucky with questions, who knows? Be nice.
I'm used to it.
You're from Enliven.
I won't do that one.
There have been changes to individual.
Kia ora, my name's Janette. I'm the Individualised Funding Regional Manager for Enliven. So we cover from Turangi to the north of the North Island. We've got the lovely Cassie in the back, who's one of our coaches for the area. So if you have any other questions after today, get her card and come back to her. Who knows about individualised funding?
Get closer to the microphone.
Is that better? Yeah. Who knows about individualised funding? Great. I just didn't want to. So basically, you can have support. If you get support for personal care, household management, and respite care, you can have a provider provide those services, or you get to manage that budget all by yourself, and that's where the hosts come in. We help you with that process. And it says here that I'm going to be talking about what you can buy with after the changing rules. That I won't be talking about it because it is truly individual. It is, as you've heard today, the planning is the most important part of this whole process. So you think about what barriers you're facing, how we can help you overcome that funding, have a talk to your NASCs or your host about it, and then we can work out what's possible with the funding. I know in 2024 we had a list of you could buy 4 things with respite. Those days are gone. We have to do it really individually. It's very exciting. I'm sure hardware users have hit the floor running and have great ideas and are using the funding in wonderful ways. We've got amazing stories filtering through already. So that's the exciting part of the changes. I know for organisations like NASCA and hosts and you guys, there's so much information to process and we're still learning. As Simone said, we haven't got a lot of what we're doing in writing yet. We're a little bit nervous about that, but at the same time we realise the value of the changes, well thought for, and we just want to be really supporting people to use the funding in a way that meets the purpose of the funding, but also meets their needs. So has everybody on individualised funding been giving their tiers? That's a new thing. So you get level 4 means that you get contact from your hosts once a month, and you can spend up to $500 without pre-approval. If you want to spend over that, then you have to have pre-approval, and I've got that coming up soon. And then for the other tiers, you get to see us 3 monthly, every 6 months, or once a year. So, and that can change, that's fluid. It's just to make sure everybody's getting the level of support that they really need to. And even if you're on the 6 monthly, please don't be shy. We're there to help. If you've got a question, come and talk to us and we can work it through together. The pre-approval process is what I'm going to show you now. That is the other bigger difference, is that you can't just rush out and buy things and expect to get the money. We want to talk to you about it first. And again, as I keep saying, it's about planning. So you have to, if you want an item that's going to overcome some barriers, you have to consider the item is safe, the item is suitable for what you want, and that you have the budget left to do it. So if you'd like to put this on.
Kia ora from the Enliven IF team. There have been changes to individualised funding, and there is now a pre-approval process. In this video, Kia ora from the Enliven IF team. There have been changes to individualised funding, and there is now a pre-approval process. In this video, we will explain this process in a simple way. We compared flexible funding to building a tower with Lego. Each Lego brick is one part of flexible funding, There are lots of parts to the new flexible funding. These each are a different Lego brick in the tower. The pre-approval process is one Lego brick in this tower. Let's talk about when pre-approval is needed. For everyone, pre-approval is required for overseas travel, equipment, complementary therapies, and buying the same item again before it should normally be replaced. If you are on Tier 4, all items over $500 must be pre-approved. If you are on Tiers 1, 2 or 3, all items over $1,500 must be pre-approved. You can apply for pre-approval in 4 ways: online form, physical form, emailing us, calling us. We recommend using our online form. It is the most efficient way. Using the pre-approval process helps make things faster and easier for you and our team. If you choose the physical form, go step by step and answer each question. If a question does not apply to you, you can skip it. When you finish, take a clear photo or scan the form and email it to ifpreapprovals@psn.org.nz. There's no need to copy in any other email address. If the online form or printed form is not accessible for you, you are welcome to call or email us at ifpreapprovals@psn.org.nz and we can discuss your request. Our team will review your request. Sometimes we may contact you with follow-up questions. If the pre-approval is approved, your next step is submitting it as a claim through the usual claiming process. If you have questions, remember we are here for you, and you can contact us via email at ifpreapprovals@psn.org.nz or give us a call on 0800 IF Enliven. Thank you for watching. We hope this video has helped you understand the pre-approval process.
Do you think that was clear? You're the first time we've tried this. It's just been developed. Do you think it's clear about what's needed? Helpful? Yeah? Anybody got any questions on the pre-approval?
Can you go online and see it?
Yeah. Or if you just email, we can send you copies of it, no problem.
These are brand new to all of my I've just got a child accepted. Is there the possibility to purchase a service or a product using IF where part of the funding comes from your IF allocation and your part funding it yourself?
Yep. We have to look at it as when we get a referral, we should be getting that by DSS funding plan. So that's a conversation to have with your needs assessor. And then they would put that in as what the funding is for. For those which is the majority of people in New Zealand, we haven't got that yet. So we look at what the allocation was for, what your support plan was, and if you've got the budget for it. So yeah, it's perfectly fine to quite a lot of people buy something that might not just be for the disabled person, so they pay part of it with their funding and part of it with the rest of the family's income. It's certainly, there is only, since the rules were removed, you can't buy alcohol and you can't gamble, because that's what we'll all do before February 24th. And so we look at it, we come from let's see how we can get this, the purchasing done for this item. So yeah, if I had one thing, it's about communication. We're not mind readers. The more information you can give us, the more likely we are able to support the request. Yeah.
So what are the items that you can buy?
It depends on your disability. So what items do you need to reduce the barrier for your disability? So it says their equipment. So some people have requested a wheelchair. but they still have to go through the public funded wheelchair process to see if that's possible to get wheelchair through that other funding stream. Some people don't need a wheelchair all the time, but if their family's really into walking and they need that wheelchair to be able to take the young adult out with them to be part of the family, then it may not be covered by that funding stream, but they can use the funding for that. So there's no list of items. It is purely based on your disability support needs and your funding level and what your funding is for.
So if you don't use that funding for 1 year, and you've got $50 million, can you carry it over to the next year?
No, that's something that's they're really clear on now. If you have an allocation of funding from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, it has to be spent in that time. There's no carrying on, and I believe that's the case for carer support as well. It has to be spent in the year of allocation.
So is that going to affect your following on? If you don't spend it 1 year, is that going to be reducing your whole package?
No, as Simone said earlier, there was talk of when the funding changes came in, that if you hadn't spent it, you'd have your budget reduced, but that wasn't the case. And we haven't had any evidence in our organisation that that's happening. I think they've realised that with the 2024 changes, there was a lot of restrictions and people just either, it was too hard or they couldn't really buy what would work for them and their family. So I haven't seen anybody have it reduced the next year. Because your needs don't change, it's a needs assessment. So in theory, the funding should be.
With things like speech therapy and physio, which I know in the last bit has been denied for funding, is that going to change going forward? So I know Ministry obviously has speech therapy and so they said, well, you should be getting that through that avenue and not doing private. Are you going to be able to use, going forward?
It would be that pre-approval for the, but yeah. You have to know that you have tried the public system. Our favourite case is we had a little 3-year-old that did get publicly funded speech language therapy, but she got it once every 6 weeks, and she was non-verbal and she would have meltdowns that shook the earth. And so the parents decided to forego any respite and pay for her speech language therapy. And it changed her world. She was able to communicate. She didn't want her toast cut that way. And so they used it that way. So they're now allowed to go back to using it that way. And, you know, they can still get the free one, or the publicly funded one. It's not free, but you know what I mean. But they can, if they want to prioritise their funding to use it that way, they can.
And is that the same with I know there's like Manawinui and all the other different ones, is that the same with those programs?
Yeah, we're all, there's lots of different individualised funding hosts. You just find ones that you meet with. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So with the plans that people have, and obviously that plan is then used to determine how you're going to spend your funding or your fund, you know, in conjunction with each other. I know I've spoken to a few parents that feel that they might be kind of held ransom almost to that plan, and if it's not on the plan and that day, then they're not going to get approved to use their funding in certain ways. Is there room in that, you know, you make a plan today and then in 2 months' time you think, oh, I really need that and I should have added it to my plan, but you didn't because you're an overstretched mother? Is there room for that? Flexibility.
We feel there is, because we'll get a funding plan and it will say that little Johnny wants to go to Scouts, but we know little Johnny in 2 weeks' time, Scouts was so last year, and he now wants to take up ballet dancing. There's that kind of flexibility all the time.
Okay.
It's all about communication. Come to us and say, look, we thought we really wanted this, but now we've discovered, you know, talking to another mum, there's more therapy out there, there's wonderful organisations that we want to be part of. As long as it's related to the disability, I think there's flexibility.
Yeah, okay. And again, those same things relate to carer support across both carer support and
I'm
IF?
not a carer support expert, but the rules are the same for everyone.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the consistency. We should all across the land be following the same philosophies.
And the area and purpose that I mentioned earlier are reasonably broad. So you wouldn't have an area and purpose that says Johnny wants to go to Scouts. You would have an area of
Community activity.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So it could be whatever.
Yeah. So it's about having, the whole process is important. Giving all your information to the NASCs, and then we can help you, and things do change, and needs develop that weren't there last year.
Yeah, that's it.
And as we've talked about, sometimes the gap gets bigger. Like what a 5-year-old could do or not do according to his peers, but when they're 8 or 9, the gap gets bigger. So we do consider that, because not everybody's assessed every year or so we do build a relationship. It's all about relationships.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, sorry, I didn't realise I had so many questions, but I keep thinking about things when I talk to other people. I was having a conversation with someone who their child is autistic and they receive funding based on that autism diagnosis. However, that child has, a range of other health diagnoses, mental health, physical and mental health diagnoses, but technically they do not classify as a disability. So the funding is tied up because they are autistic. Is there room in that planning and conversation and assessment to look at that whole child holistically and the whole child's needs, rather than just saying, we need to focus on autism because that's what you get your funding for? What about the X, Y, and Z and the X, Y, and Z and the X, Y, and Z?
I do think if this is applied properly, you should be looking at the individual and all their needs. Obviously, if there's, we're not going to be encouraging people to use the funding to have their appendix out or anything like that.
No.
But if we can't see a way of saying yes, we'll be talking to the NAS. We've now got a community of practice. We meet each other. I mean, Simone and I just met today face to face. We know our faces.
I know Janette from here.
On a video screen.
So there's a whole lot of work going on behind it, so that we're all saying the same, discussing things, thinking about things. So we've been in the industry. I'm the dinosaur, but we might not think how this funding could meet it, but we might be able to connect you to something else that the funding, there's funding for long-term health conditions that you may be able to tap into. So we do try and make it happen.
Yeah. And your NASCs should be able to make that connection as well, but and that's the reason for the submission, like the last slide of the submission to the disability bill is going, come on, we can't keep treating people in these funding silos. They are a whole person.
Yeah, that's it.
So that
and
was
part of a FAR now.
Exactly.
That has needs as well.
Yeah. So technically, no, we can't allocate funding for those health needs. But as Janette said, in reality, if that is what your biggest need is, but your funding allocation will only be determined on your disability-related need.
Yeah, and of course, and if you have an autistic child, then the whole way they see the world is through that lens.
Yes.
So if they then have epilepsy or chronic fatigue, everything is also affected because they're autistic. You can't, but you can't separate those things.
Yeah.
That was, these are the conversations I'm having.
Yeah. So my son has diagnosis of autism and ADHD, but he's also got really chronic eczema, dermatitis.
Yeah.
So the funding, like, it's much harder to separate out what is autism, what is ADHD. But I'm not going to receive any funding for the fact that he's got this terrible skin condition, even though his autism means that he's not putting the bloody creams on and when he's supposed to be doing.
That's the thing. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
You can't only look at one. Yeah. And I think that was
that whole thing of you're 20 years old. I should not be putting cream on you at 20 years old, Joshua. Like, come on,
Come on, Simone. Come on.
We have a question here.
Sure.
would the IF cover for a deaf person for communication, like for example data, Wi-Fi? Would IF cover for mobile phones? Would they cover?
We would consider that because it is a human right to communicate, and there's always been the ability to, even before with the changes, you could buy an iPad so that you could communicate through that. You could buy like a laptop or something to manage your funding. So we are open to discussing that. And again, if you're saying clearly that I need this phone because we have a lot of clients who are blind or visually impaired, and so that phone speaks to them, and I'm technophobic, but they have a preference of which phone they use and the apps they get that can help them. So we certainly are open to those discussions.
Lovely, thank you.
I'd just like to compliment both Support Net and Enliven. I have 2 children on the spectrum, and with my eldest be under Enliven and Support Net, and your caseworkers have been amazing, especially this last few while, since the changes on the 1st of April. So yeah, I think you don't hear that enough as well. So the work that you are doing is amazing. It's just we need to get here. We need other people to get here because you are really doing a good job.
We do work really hard to try and get what people need.
I will pass that on to SupportNet. Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions? So it's really about building a relationship with your host, whoever they are. And I know that we've always met people face to face because we think it's really important. We're always happy to go back to meet people again because, you know, if you become an employer, you can't do that easily. And we now know that the way the new rules are written, there's going to be more of that happening. So that makes me really happy that people are going to get really good service and get the most out of the funding. It's very hard fought for. Yeah.
Did I hear you correctly? I'm Shirley from Brain Injury Children Trust, and we support families who've got children with a brain injury to embark on a specific program to go from special needs to wellness. Did I hear you correctly saying so the families can come to you directly to?
No, it has to. We get referrals from the needs assessment service, so
Right.
support them.
About having a conversation about like what the service, the actual program that our families use. Are you interested in hearing about that? So that if families do come and want to use their IF funding, you've actually got information from the organisation.
Yep. Casey's got her cards with if you want to email that information. We do try and share what's around, you know, because people don't know if they don't know. Yeah, we love to have that, you know, what's possible, and we try to capture a few more stories now because we've become a BHN funding holder. For those who don't know what that is, if you go to school and you get OARS funding for very high needs, when you leave school you're entitled to what they call BHN funding, very high needs funding, and we've become a fund holder so they can combine the two lots of funding, so you're not dealing with somebody for that and somebody for that. And so we try and talk about what's around to encourage, especially young adults. They're a challenge for every parent, but when they've got the additional bonuses. I have a great nephew who he describes himself as neuro-spicy, and we have lots of great discussions about my worldview and his worldview, but he's got into an organisation that helped him find a job, you know, and he's successfully completed a computer course. He's 28, so he's just a wee bit slower than his peers, but he's doing it because he's found the right support. So we really try and make those connections. If we know about it, and if we don't know about it, we can't share that. So please, yeah. My other suggestion is the DSS website, the Disability Support Services website. They're changing things every day, and I know you're all busy, but if you do ever get a chance, if you've got 5 minutes, go and have a look and see what they're saying on their website. we've got brochures out there. There's a disabilitysupport.government.nz, DSS changes, because it is a moving feast at the moment. What we're told one day can change the next day. So, but it's exciting because people can use the funding in a way that's meaningful. Anything else? Any other questions?
Sorry, I don't get some question, but you know how some people get prescribed medication, for example with MS, and it's not funded by the government, so they can't use their individualised funding to pay for that medicine, can they?
We have to do the process. We have to see that it is going to benefit them, but it's not a no.
It's not a no?
Not a no, no. Because it's the decision making has gone back to the disabled person and their supporters. So if that's a disability support and if that's going to keep them well and keep them moving and doing things, then it's not a no.
What we can't do is allocate resources, funding specifically for that purpose.
Right.
We can't do that.
Yeah, if you're willing to go without having your floors vacuumed for that, that's your choice. Yeah.
Right.
There's a limited amount of money, and if DSS were here, that's the one thing they'd be saying. There's no topping up of the funding. Those days are gone. You've got to stay within your budget, stay within your year, but how you use it is a lot more flexible.
So how often are people going to be reviewed now? So if their families here that are getting a package, and then it's review time and they're told they're going to get, but they're not going to get in the future, it's going to be reduced by certain numbers.
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that hasn't changed. So the difference between a review and a reassessment. So the reassessment is when you'll go through the OBEA and the indicative range process, and that still happens every 3 to 5 years, unless there's been a change of need. A review happens annually, but that will not result in a going through the OBEA and the indicative range process. That only happens at the reassessment time. So everybody will be reviewed annually, but they won't go through the indicative range unless they have a reassessment. And the standard reassessment is 3 to 5 years, unless there's been a change in disability-related need.
If there is a change, whose responsibility is it to talk? Is it the pediatrician that gets in touch with you, or is it a parent?
No, anybody.
Anyone.
Anybody can talk to us and say, hey, there's been a significant change in disability-related need. So it wouldn't be that there's been a change in circumstance, it's a change in the disability.
You guys don't get automatically told, or there's no automation with it?
No. We don't have cameras in people's houses that they say people know that things have changed.
Say it's a diagnosis from, say, GDD to whatever a genetic condition.
Yeah, no.
No, it has to be.
We don't.
Yeah.
Well, they may let us know, but they may not as well. So we don't always know.
Paediatricians do email. Not everybody does. So just to be on the safe side, whatever you know, share with your NAS.
Yeah.
Was that a hand at the back?
All right.
All right.
Yeah.